Today we're talking about tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the future of photography on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions. If you've got photo questions, you know what to do. You go to askdavidbergman.com, submit your questions right there on the site. I just might pick your question to answer here on a future show. I actually had a number of different people send in similar question, but I'm going to go with this one from Geet M, and Geet wants to know, what will be the future of photography? Mobile camera technologies are getting better and better, and most people prefer to click images themselves instead of hiring a professional. Will photography remain a financially viable business? That's really a great question. Thanks so much for sending it in. As somebody who's been in the photo business for 30 years now, the future of my industry is something I think about quite a bit because I want to keep working, I want to stay on top of it, and I want to make sure that I can stay ahead of the curve. Now, when I start thinking about it, there are really two sides of the coin here. The first one is just about the technology. Now, look, I don't claim to know anything about what's going to happen. Obviously, nobody knows the future, but I've been around a number of years and I can imagine where things are going based on past trends and where things are headed. Now, already each generation of our cameras get better and better. The technology, it really improves every single generation. Simple things like the build quality and the waterproofing of our cameras, all the way to the buffer speeds and the higher ISOs. I'm shooting 12,800 ISO on the R3 now, and it looks like 400 ISO used to look just 10 years ago. It's kind of insane. The cameras now also have more and more megapixels, although I do think the megapixel race is kind of over. For most uses now, we have enough megapixels. The quality of those pixels is really what's more important to me than the number of pixels, except for rare cases where you need monstrous files. Other than that, 99.9% of what we're doing, we have plenty of pixels now. I don't think that's really an issue. But we will hit at some point some physical limitations to the optics, right? The light gathering sensors, the glass can only go so far. There may be some new technology to physically shrink camera lenses and collect more light on those sensors, but we're still going to be kind of limited on how far we can go with that. Now, where all of the advances have been coming, or many of the new advances, is really in computational photography. You don't have to look far to see in the smartphones we're using now, all of that computational photography, the AI and the algorithms and all of those things are slowly dripping their way into the DSLR world, and it's really kind of exciting, right? We have things like multiple image HDRs, the computers in these things can detect our subjects. The R3, again, can tell a person from an animal and it knows different kinds of cars. It's really kind of insane and knows where to focus just based on the fact that it knows what that subject is. And it's kind of insane, that technology. We're just on the bleeding edge of this tech now, and it's really exciting to think about where it might go as we hit that perfect storm where the computational photography and the traditional optical photography come together way more than they are now. I think our minds are just going to be blown with what we can do with this technology. We're also going to be looking at things, more immersive photography, things like virtual reality and augmented reality, VR and AR, and new technologies that we haven't even imagined yet. Maybe holograms, and maybe, on my glasses, I'll be having those AR overlays and I can just take pictures that way and recall them back very easily. It's really mind-blowing to start thinking about where we can go with this tech as the processing power gets better and faster, and while we've also developed this amazing optical technology. So that's really, the tech is just, I think we're just on the verge of having that perfect storm of those two types of technologies coming together, and it's just going to explode a whole new world of being able to capture images in a new way. So that's one half of the equation. The other half, as far as when I look at the future, I'm really thinking more about the creative side. Photography is half technology and half creative. The tech is only going to take you so far. You really do need both. It's very important to be able to make great images that you have the creative and the technical. Some of the best images that we've ever seen throughout history are really not great quality, but capturing a moment, documenting history, or just creating art in a new way, if it moves people, that is never going to change, right? That is something our hearts and our eyes and our brains work together to create something that's magical. And that's not going to change in the future. Human beings still are needed. We're still an important part of that technology. For the photo industry now, the tech has really lowered the entry barrier to almost zero. It's very easy for anybody to get into the photography game now. Some professional photographers who've been around before that happened, that switch with digital, a lot of them lament that fact that anybody can do it now because it's made the business somewhat harder. Here's the thing, I actually welcome that. First of all, it allows more people to be creative. It allows people to explore their own creativity and pursue artistic passions that they might not have been able to in the past. Even just a couple of decades ago, professional photographers had access to gear that was way better than what anyone else was using. And if you had things like good hand-eye coordination, for example, I used to shoot sports back in the manual focus days. If you had that ability to really manual focus, to follow focus on somebody as they were running at you, you could be a working professional sports photographer because not that many people were really good at it. Most people didn't even know how to load 35 millimeter film back in the day, right? So if you were good with that kind of stuff, you could make a living. But now, almost everyone has access to the same technology. The same amazing cameras and lenses are available to photographers of all skill levels. So what do we do? How do we stay ahead of the curve? Well, here's the thing. I don't lament the fact that everybody has the same gear because really, it's made me a better photographer. Why? Now I have to think. I really have to use my brain and I have to be smart about what I'm shooting, not just rely on the tech to make a better picture than the person standing next to me. I often think at an assignment when I'm standing there and there are a lot of other photographers around, where it's a lot of the events I do, there are many photographers, I often ask myself, why am I here? What can I do that's different? How do I separate myself from every other photographer that's here? I have learned to work smarter, not just harder, but smarter. I can't rely just on the tech to stand out. So again, that's not going to change in the future. The photographers who are thinking and who can put themselves in the position to make the best pictures are going to survive in the future, regardless of what the technology does. As for the business side per se, most of that low-hanging fruit, as I'll call it, those jobs, the simple jobs that used to be the bread and butter for many working photographers, a lot of those have already gone away. Corporate headshots, I don't do nearly as many of those as I used to. Simple events like parties and even groundbreaking ceremonies and things like that, you used to have to hire a professional photographer to do that, and you paid good money for that. But there's too many companies now have an in-house person, for example, and they're already on salary, and they're a pretty good photographer in their own right, even if it's not their primary job, and they can shoot that without it costing the company any more money. So they're going to do that in most cases. But again, I don't lament that fact because there's always going to be room for some photographers at the top. If you look at the other creative industries, the music industry or the publishing industry, there's always going to be a small percentage. I know what that percentage is, 1%, 5%, 10%. The top percentage that are going to still continue to do well. They're going to get all the top jobs and make most of the money. If you want to do this for a living, you really need to find a way to break into that top echelon and not worry about that low-hanging fruit that's gone away. If you're not going to make it into that top, percentage, that's okay. This is going to continue to be a fantastic hobby. Photography really allows us to be creative in ways that you can't do in a lot of other ways. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I've spent my career trying to stay ahead of the pack. I'm not going to chase trends. I'm not just following the pack whatever everybody else is doing. I want to create images that make people feel something. I don't care what emotion that is, if it makes you happy or sad or angry or confused. That is the key to future-proofing yourself against any technology changes or any business changes in the future. There's always going to be a need for people who can move somebody with their creativity. You could teach me how to play the chords on a guitar. That doesn't mean I can write a song that's going to move you, right? That's going to make you feel something. Photographically, I think I can do that sometimes. So that's how I'm going to continue to future-proof myself moving forward. So what do you guys think? How do you think photography is going to change in the future? I would love to hear your thoughts. I have my own thoughts about it, but I want to hear what you guys think. There's a lot of great people out there who are thinking about this stuff, and I want to know what's going to happen next. Also, I hope you're already a subscriber. If not, go ahead and click that button down below. Use the bell icon. You'll be notified as soon as new shows come out all week long. And I'm back here every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern with a brand new show. I'll have a new question next week. I hope you'll join me. Come on back now. You're here. I'll see you next week right here on Ask David Bergman.